Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I am your host, D Palm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. Follow the entire MTR Network at the MTR Network. And Mama, we made it. Another podcast week is in the books. Normally, I'm going to let you guys behind the curtain some. Normally, at the end of podcast week, I am exhausted, and I sit back and let my co-host handle this last one, and I just kind of interject where I can. Oh, no, my friends. I did something this year called planning. I had all four of the previous podcasts in the books, edited and ready for post by 5 p.m. Sunday night. So I am fresh. I am ready. I got hot takes. I got some semi-cold takes. I've got lots of jokes as one of our co-hosts isn't here, so I'm certain someone's going to catch a lot of hell. But I'd be remiss if I didn't recap and say thank you to everyone who came through for podcast week. Monday, we had Chad Floyd on Talking Georgia Football. Tuesday, we had Michael Felder from Stadium talking Power 5 conferences in NCAA football. Wednesday, we had my old left tackle, Barstow, talking the AFC. Yesterday, you heard Kanetta Edwards from everywhere talking about the NFC. And today, probably my favorite part of podcast week is I get to talk a little pro wrestling. And I get to talk about it with two people who I love talking about pro wrestling with. First of all, I've got Sam Franco from 960 The Rock in Athens, Georgia, the voice of the Dogs. How are you doing, brother?
Doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, D Palm, and to ring the bell for myself really quickly. Finally hosting the first ever soccer-specific weekly radio show in Atlanta on Atlanta Sports X 106.3 FM, 12:30 a.m. Wednesdays, 7 to 8 p.m. We're talking Atlanta United, a soccer-specific show on traditional radio in the city of Atlanta. Yes, this is 2018, and it's pretty great.
First things first, congratulations, my friend. I did not know that. That's breaking news in the podcast, and I will tune in even though the soccer advertising has not been aimed at people like me. I will tune in to support my boy because that's what we do here on the podcast. Our other host tonight is a veteran of the podcast. You've heard him here many times, You've also heard him over at PW Torch, co-hosting the East Coast Cast, and also hosting his own show where I've been an occasional guest, the Deep, wait for it, Dive. We've got Rich Fanning here. How you doing, Rich?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on, as always, and I'm looking forward to all the fun conversation we're going to have. I don't have any bells to ring yet, but I'm sure by the end of the show there will be a few.
Oh, the bell will be rung, names will be dropped, and jokes will be made, but in a good time will be had by all. Before we get into it, I do want to talk about this. Every year I play kind of coy. I'm like, I don't know. Will I do a show for Monday? I don't know. This year I can tell you for sure you will have a brand new podcast Monday morning, and it won't be the typical podcast. It'll be a bit more serious because I've been kind of wanting to do this show for a while now, and I got a little dead time in the calendar, and I'm going to talk about kind of power dynamics, and we're going to touch on some of it today, but it's been interesting to watch it happen over the last few months in sports, where the idea of power and the idea who has it, and the idea who's and the thought of what you're willing to do to keep it, and how it's kind of infected not just sports but society as a whole. But yeah, tune in for that on Monday morning. I'll be ready for your get you through that Monday day. Let's get right into pro wrestling, guys, because 2018, it's been a crazy year of pro wrestling. We've seen the return of Daniel Bryan, which I never thought would happen. We've seen Chris Jericho win the IC title in New Japan, which doesn't make any sense. You've got him #free agent Jericho threatening to show up on Impact. The cats are lying with dogs. You don't know what's going on. But I do want to start outside the WWE and actually outside of pro wrestling kind of proper, because I absorbed the show Glow on Netflix, and I am both shocked and a little amazed at not just how well I think they communicated what wrestling is, but the story behind it. I know, Richie said you finished it up. What did you think of that second season? For me, it was interesting because, first of all, it made Susan, my wife, appreciate pro wrestling more. But also it made her it was just a really positive, important story kind of for the times we're in.
I really enjoyed it because the story arc was great. The thing that pulled me in the most was when, and this is minor spoilers, Liberty Bell shot on her opponent in the ring, and the aftermath from that was treated in a manner that went into exactly what I wanted out of a pro wrestling show and even more out of a Netflix drama, because that was basically, to me, like the tipping point, and when the series kind of just went, not necessarily most people would say in a bad way off the rails, but it went off the rails into things are spiraling out of their own control. They were not the masters of their domain, and they were just scrambling from there at that point on, really up into the ending. And that arc, coupled with the very looming presence of the HIV epidemic in the 80s and 90s, being portrayed in a way that wasn't they didn't treat it with kid gloves.
No, they were very realistic with it.
And that was awesome. I appreciated they didn't take a 2018 lens to 1985, 1986. They took a 1986 lens to 1986.
And yeah, without spoiling anything, I could tell people, if you're a even tangential wrestling fan, this is a story not just about women wrestling or about Glow. It's a story about it's a great story, but at its core, it's a story about a pro wrestling company. And you get to see kind of what the territory days used to be and kind of what indie promotions are fighting through now with TV deals and trying to make a house and losing your venues and things of that nature. We're actually in a bit of a pro wrestling independent boom period, at least outside of the WWE boom period. We could talk about the G1 tournament for days. I'm not going to. But I do want to talk about the big news happening stateside, and that is, first and foremost, Ring of Honor and New Japan partnering up to sell out Madison Square Garden over at WrestleMania weekend next year. Sam, we both know that this is the first pro wrestling to run in the main theater of the Garden ever. That's not WWE. What does this mean for the landscape as a whole? Because, hey, I'm of the belief that more places for guys to work and earn a living is better for the business. It's better for even people who just watch WWE because they have to set their game up. Is this something that the WWE should be threatened by or should be energized by?
Honestly, I think first and foremost, this is that final death nail for the territory days, just because WWE used to be New York. They used to be right. Madison Square Garden, and now that this has happened and Vince McMahon is super butthurt about it, it really feels like that's the death of the traditional territory. I mean, it's been pretty much dead for a while, but I mean, this is the one where it's like, wow, WWE has lost their exclusivity on Madison Square Garden. It really has shown that, Ring of Honor, New Japan, all of these are I know New Japan is an international entity, but Ring of Honor is really not a regional thing. It's a national and even global brand. And you see with what Cody Rhodes is doing, I know we'll dive into All In a little later, but yeah, you're totally right when you say that this is a boon period for independent wrestling or non-WWE wrestling. And it's just funny that a brand like Impact that has, I guess, the second best TV deal or whatever is not even close to the type of product that you're getting from some of these independent promotions like Ring of Honor and like New Japan and things like that. So I think overall this is a great thing for professional wrestling because it gives you more options. And when Vince McMahon does Vince McMahon things, a la bringing back Hulk Hogan and things like that, it gives you another option if you just get fed up with that kind of stuff.
That's a really interesting take I hadn't thought about. It truly is the death knell of the territory days, because you're right. For a long time, people say, it ended when WCW bought out all the NWA territories, But you're right that the last bastion of true territory system was the WWE, which had started in New York, but kind of evolved to a national territory. There are arenas to this day that I know that turned down WCW even during the boom period, saying we don't want to endanger our deal with WWE. With Madison Square Garden being the first one to say, yeah, we'll look outside, it could embolden these other places to let bigger houses get run for a Ring of Honor and New Japan coming stateside. It's really a world of opportunity. Rich, what say you about this? Because you've seen, I know that you and I have both seen some pushback from people saying, oh, this is bad, this isn't great. But for me, all I see is positive things because, like Sam said, this is the beginning of a boom period, in my opinion, because iron sharpens iron. We always talk about, guys, they like being in rings with certain guys because they feel like they get better, they get more comfortable. If these guys can get reps on television, get reps in other places making money, that only rises the tide of everyone around them. Maybe not as much as the WWE would like in their own case, though, right?
Yeah, and I think to Sam's point, I would say that while the traditional, you could argue the traditional territory system is died with it, I would say there's an asterisk because if this was any other company, they wouldn't have gotten Madison Square Garden. It took a billionaire with more money than Vince McMahon to tell MSG, hey, what's your deal here? to even get Ring of Honor there. Because remember, they tried the first time, and WWE made a call and rebuffed their efforts. And then Sinclair made a call to Daddy, much like when Marvel decided to call Disney and say, hey, let's just bring it all home. Just do it for me. And so I think in some ways that's one thing, but I think the new territory of our eyeballs with the transition to digital, with the transition of having all of these, even All In is going to be something you can stream. It's the people in the arena can have the fun, but everyone around the world can join in. And so I think the WWE is a little annoyed by that because you can't just go to the network and see good wrestling. I can go to Powerbomb TV. I can go to This Is Progress. I can go to Honor Club, which bell rang, prepare. I use my Honor Club to buy my tickets to All In before it sold out. So those sorts of opportunities are things that WWE doesn't even do. They don't say if you're a member of the WWE network, you get first dibs at NXT.
You're right.
And maybe they should.
It's harder because it's a different opportunity afforded by having a smaller, more maneuverable machine. And while the WWE is this big corporate entity that has enough subscribers where I think it would be almost improbable to say NXT tickets go on sale first for network subscribers, I think something like Honor Club, it's a lot more available to do because, to be fair, the reach isn't as big. That means you're able to get more exclusive things. With the reach being what it is for WWE, it's hard to say, oh, the network subscribers get first crack at X tickets because that's not how the network isn't the way they're building their brand. It's their future, but it's not the impetus for their growth. I think Honor Club is a great product, and I'm deciding whether or not right now, honestly, to join. But it's a way for them to entice and get new eyeballs because ROH has the Sinclair deal, but they're not on USA. There's not a established time slot that everyone's tweeting about ROH at the same time. I know a lot of us catch it on demand or we'll catch it on DVR. With this, you can't make Ring of Honor appointment television. What you can do is add a level of exclusivity to the streaming product and make it more appealing to even the casual who says, wait, what exactly is Ring of Honor? I know a lot of my current favorites came from there, but what's going on there now? And that's what makes it super interesting. Since Rich already put himself over by mentioning it and subsequently hurting my heart for letting me know that I definitely won't be going, All In. And for those of you who are uninitiated, All In is the brainchild of Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks. And they said, let's take the model of a true independent show and bring it to the biggest stage possible. I think it was an argument, kind of a joke online back and forth between Cody and Dave Meltzer, who said you couldn't sell out a 10,000-seat arena, and Cody took it personally. And we're truly seeing the son of the plumber now because we've got Cody with his Booker hat on. You've seen him tweet out images from the book that his father held for the first Starrcade and seeing his own birth notated in there. Rich, as a fan who's probably going to be catching it streaming because I just appreciate the entrepreneurial spirit of these guys, what should we expect from the All In weekend and from StarCast, which is the podcast event occurring the day before?
I mean, just mentioning StarCast, that's something. You take the best of everything. It's like a wrestling festival. You take the best of wrestling podcasts, you put them together, you have something for everyone. If you have an interest in more mainline like the Torch and Observer, you can go to the Torch and Observer Super Collider, the Mega Powers Explode show they're going to do on Thursday where Wade, Bruce, Dave, and Brian are all going to have the first time they all sit down together and talk wrestling with an audience and then have it recorded for a podcast. If you want to meet and greet like you would at a wrestling convention, you can do that as well. The entrepreneurial spirit of not only Cody, the Bucks, but also Conrad Thompson for being savvy enough to say, hey, you can do this too and make money. And Cody having the wherewithal to say, yeah, that does make sense, has made it an entire experience. I think folks are going to get there from Thursday or Wednesday night all the way to Monday morning and have an experience. I'll be there I have a football game that weekend, so I'll get there at about 3 or 4 Chicago time, enough time to get my hotel and my car, then get to the show itself. But that's going to be a 4-hour show, and it's going to be not only a pay-per-view, but a pre-show, because they were smart enough to say, hey, if you're interested in this, maybe we want to give you a preview to give you a taste to see if you want to pay the 30 or 40 bucks to see the whole thing, or if you have Fight TV, or if you have Honor Club. The intricacies of the interconnectedness of all this stuff is awesome to me. And I think this show is going to be maybe the last best super indie show, because much like Ring of Honor going to MSG, WWE is hell-bent on never having this happen again.
Well, not just WWE, some of these other companies, I know that clauses exist that certain people couldn't work the show because they'd have to be on TV for another company. I think that as more longer-term contracts come in place with like MLW and ROH and even Lucha Underground had those issues as well with Ricochet coming to WWE, it's going to be interesting to see just what the landscape is because Cody and the Bucks have often said they're like, don't try to come next year. There may not be a next year. There's a very good chance this is a one-and-done type situation just because the landscape is changing so fast and they found a market inefficiency. I do want to touch on something you mentioned because Conrad Thompson is right now, in my book, the second biggest promoter in the world because, and it's crazy because I hadn't really thought about it until Sam mentioned it earlier, Impact has been around longer than WCW was. And the footprint they've left, it reeks of sour milk and disappointments. So to say that Conrad Thompson, someone just a fan like us, obviously a bit more connected, was able to not just find a way to monetize this, but to get it off the ground and make it happen to the point where people were still announcing. I think Scott Steiner just now announced he'll be at All In doing signings and probably doing some ham cube stuff with with Shivani and Conrad. It's going to be really interesting to see it happen. Sam, are you going to be All In?
Oh, absolutely. I totally plan on doing that. We just found out around here, actually, that something called Universal Championship Wrestling is coming to the Classic Center here in Athens, and Big Papa Pump and Buff Bagwell are going to be involved. So I just wanted to give a little shout-out to the Athens wrestling scene, which has been pretty non-existent recently. But, yeah, I totally want to check this out. I totally want to see, what it looks like. I totally want to see the production value and all that stuff. And just see what this kind of show and a really an indie show on this kind of scale, I want to see how they present it and how it looks. And I want to watch the fruits of Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks and Conrad and all these people's labor. And I want to support it just because it's something different. It's something new. And eventually when the WWE offers Cody Rhodes too much money to turn down to come back, he'll look back at this and be like, this is one of the things I was able to do to really prove to everyone that I was worth more than being a Goldust ripoff gimmick.
While my feelings in the Stardust gimmick are not shared by most, I do understand what you're saying. And it makes a lot of sense to me because it's one of those things that guys who always leave and come back, like your Jinder Mahals or your Drew McIntyres or Galloway, if you want to call them that way, they all agree is that you've got to go out. And once you've proven your worth, not only WWE come calling, that's kind of why they release you. They release you not to say, oh, go vanish somewhere or best luck in your future endeavors. A lot of guys get these releases and are told, like, go. We'll never burn this bridge. You're welcome to come back. Hell, you look at what happened even with the Kurt Hawkins. When he left, his stock was pretty low, but he wrestled a bunch of consistent and well-booked indies along the East Coast for about 8 to 10 months and found his way back when they had the roster expansion. It's interesting to see, particularly as spots are opening up in the PC for a trainer-type role or different places that people can fit. It's nice to see that a wrestler can have longevity in this field and not have to say, I'll work one more match, and not be Terry Funking it and retiring 14 times a year. This is going to be I think what they created here is kind of almost a second breath of fresh air for a lot of guys who thought that their time in the business was over. And what Cody's doing right now is proving that there's always a second neck. There's always a next act. People thought that when he asked for his release, he was dumb, that he was leaving the machine, leaving a steady paycheck. But I would say that Cody Rhodes' stock had never been higher. It's never been higher than it is right now. And you're right. They're eventually going to offer him more money than probably is wise to have him come back. And when he does it, he'll do so at a much more elevated place than, you're right, his big brother Shadow. Before we get into the NXT weekend, I do want to touch on something that happened this week. Dave Meltzer was on Wrestling Observer Network and made some sexist and body-shaming comments at Peyton Royce. He was called out by the internet. He came forth and, to his credit, issued a full it wasn't one of those half apologies. It was very much like, I screwed up. I'm learning. I need to get better. And I appreciate that. Do not defend me. I like that he added that. Rich, you've been on here before. We've talked about the wrestling, and I'm using kind of the quotes that people use, but I'm not using them, if you know what I mean. Journalism and how difficult it can be to discuss this industry in a tacit and respectful way sometimes. we all agreed Meltzer crossed the line, but what do you think the next step is for wrestling? Because, as much as people have kind of taken the task, you do see those not just Meltzer defenders, but defenders of, and I'll call it what it is, misogyny, coming out and saying, well, this is why we watch. What are you talking about? Is there a place? Are we just kind of in a transition point, not just as a culture, but as a wrestling culture as well, to where we've got to evolve our thinking? Or is this something that's going to always be ingrained?
I think it's two things. And I had a really lengthy conversation with Bruce Mitchell about this, because me about it wasn't that Dave had his issue. Dave owning up to it was fine. I don't know Dave from Adam. I was telling a friend of mine about this. Like, Dave has been nice to me every time I met him. He's been very respectful, and if I had asked for advice about what I was writing or anything like that, he's nothing but helpful. Mm-hmm. This isn't one of those, and that means he doesn't have a racist bone in his body conversations. I'm thinking back to it. Bruce has known him for 30 years. Bruce is a person I trust implicitly, and the one thing I know in dealing with these guys, and even talking to Bruce about incidents I've had outside of wrestling, I'm more than happy to share. I had an example when I was with a student that was transitioning, and I misgendered their name, and I felt sick about it. But they were cool about it. They explained what happened. It walked me through it, and it was a learning lesson, and not something where I got treated like I was a piece of crap. And I feel like with the advent of Twitter, a lot of this became people taking shots at Meltzer, and this goes into a bigger, like a deep dive almost into things. I've been trying to talk to Bruce about the idea of Conrad's doing a great job in the realm of being a promoter, but he's also given platforms to people who, while they say it's tongue-in-cheek entertainment, the people listening do not see it as that. They see it as information.
Right.
So that group joined in with the righteous folk who rightfully called Dave out on the misogynistic comments. And then we lose sight of the fact that the very industry he's covering, like, I'm not even going to touch the WWE wrestlers that jumped in, but you have to also talk from a business standpoint, because Dave Meltzer wasn't the person that had employees call Mickie James Piggy James when she gained 5 pounds.
Right.
Dave Meltzer wasn't the person.
I respect that, and I see that, and I understand that. And for me, the wrestlers calling out Dave, I'm fine with, because people are saying, oh, they didn't call it their company for the GRR for Hulk Hogan. And that statement in itself, like, you get why they couldn't call him out, right? You can't call out your bosses. Like, there's a certain power dynamic here that allows them to take shots at an unaffiliated writer, and that they cannot take up the chain. What it does for me, though, it lets me know that this locker room is plugged in, is paying attention, and probably echoes a lot of the concerns that they can't verbalize that we as fans do have about what's going on as far as the representation. Has it gotten better? Yes. Has the GRR thing been, for me, when people bring up the GRR or even the Piggy James thing almost, it feels like when people say, what about black on black crime? Like, they can both be wrong. Meltzer and the WWE as a corporate entity can both be wrong. And I'm not willing to throw the wrestlers who are using their voices and their platforms to bring this thing to light. And I don't think any of the wrestlers that I've seen have been unfair to Dave. I think that even like a Tyler Breeze is very clear about saying, hey, this is why we're upset, and we appreciate you having the back and forth. I think that it's interesting, because you're right. There's definitely a school of people who are just waiting for Dave Meltzer to quote unquote slip. And while you and I recognize what Conrad does on Fridays, Wednesdays, and Mondays as entertainment driven, a lot of people, like you said, don't. And it's one of those things where I want to sit back with the fandom and put our arm around everyone and say, they're all working. It's a working business. Everyone's working all the time. And Dave's work didn't work. And so he had to shoot and try to fix it. And that's fine. But when you say, oh, these guys, they couldn't be in the same room together, they're going to be in the same room together at StarCast.
But here's where I'll push back. You said that they don't have the power to do it. The sole reason we're now in the era of the women's quote-unquote evolution is because an employee told her boss in a very public forum, hey, stop trying to suck up to celebrities and treat your employees like the athletes we need to be.
Is that person employed right now?
She is not.
Okay.
So and that begs the question, are we saying they're trying to do the right thing or do the thing with the job?
I'm not here for motivations. I'm here for actions. Like it's when someone says, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way." I can't judge your intent. I can only judge what I see, and what I see is them making concerted effort to change things and change a history that they should very well be ashamed of.
I'll counter you again. I see a history where they are ignoring the stuff they did and pretending that everything they've done is now historic. When you look at the history books, women's professional wrestling around the world was treated with far more respect than the WWE, but they're acting as if, oh, hey, this is this thing we invented. So there's a little bit of disingenuous,
You're right about that, and I'm not going to sit here and defend the WWE. It's not. They don't pay me anything. I'm not going to do that. But what I will say is that for the largest audience of professional wrestling eyes, the statements they're saying are true.
Well,
for the overwhelmingly targeted audience that doesn't know about Stardom, that doesn't know about Glow, that the things they're saying, is it worth the effort to muddy the waters to clarify? When at the very core of it, it is a promotional tool.
Well, I would say this, and then I'll cede the floor. Everyone got in a dander. They slapped Meltzer down. We all agreed, yay, kumbaya. What was the first thing I saw when I got up on Twitter this morning, Paul? Zelina Vega, hey, look at my new photo shoot on WWE.com.
Yeah.
Why is the business manager for Almas being treated like a cheesecake calendar when she's a talented wrestler in her own right? And on the flip side, why don't I see Tyler Breeze doing one of those? Not that I want it, but there are people who do.
No, you're right. We're not the target audience for that. But you're right. And I look, without going into a larger societal reason as to why that's happening, like you asked that question, but we both know the answer.
And that's where I get to with the Dave thing. Like he misspoke and he screwed up and he owned it. And I find that a lot of times people who have been established allies, if you screw up and the wrong person is like, we could talk about the thing that went down with Guardians of the Galaxy. He said ridiculously bad stuff. He needed to be fired. But then for everyone to say, well, hey, let's just pump your brakes, and he's apologized and yada yada. With Meltzer, he didn't say a mea culpa where it was like, yeah, but what about Chicago? A lot of people did, like you said. My issue had been with this entire thing. A lot of people brought that energy, even to a point where a former coworker of mine was like, fake journalist like Dave Meltzer. It's like, hold up. Let's play the transitive pop. If he's a journalist, our boss is a fake journalist, and we're fake journalists a step removed by proxy. What are we doing?
Right. No, I think that goes back to like the people want to jump on a pile, and that there was definitely a large section of people who have bought into this Dave Meltzer's the devil thing, and that's why it came out the way it did. I just think that it's important that the conversation's happening. It's important that we move forward, that as a wrestling fandom, we can have the conversations, but it's also important that we allow people, like you mentioned in your personal story, room to grow. I am not the person I was 10 years ago, thank Christ. And I'm not the person I was 10 years before that. It's important to allow people the places to screw up and to learn. And you can say, oh, Dave should have known better, but yeah, maybe he should have. You're right. But we can't control when someone else gets it. All we can do is once they get it, help them continue to get it.
I just like Seth Rollins' tweet, -6 stars.
-6 stars. That was a strong tweet. Seth Rollins, Kobe Lopez. I'm a huge fan for Seth Rollins. I don't know if you guys read his SI piece today, but really interesting stuff talking about how if we keep bringing back your Stone Colds and your Rocks, how are we going to evolve in your Stone Colds and Rocks in reference to the rumored Rock Roman Reigns match at WrestleMania. But let's not go to WrestleMania. Let's go to Saturday. Let's go to Brooklyn. Let's go to NXT TakeOver 4. And first and foremost, Sam Franco, when you talk about like the history of NXT, this is batshit insane because this started off as a working game show. They had Brian Danielson, chugging soda on air and doing monkey bar competitions. And now it's not just a tour. They're selling out Barclays the fourth year in a row with a card that's going to light the world on fire. I'm so excited for this. Sam, what's the match on the card right now? Let's go through the card really quickly. The card is Velveteen Dream versus Ethan Carter III, the Undisputed Era versus Mustache Mountain for the tag team titles, Adam Cole versus Ricochet for the North American Championship, Shayna Baszler, Kairi Sane for the NXT Women's Championship, and a last man standing, Ciampa Gargano 3 for the NXT Championship. Sam, which match catches your eye first and says, this is why I'm watching?
I don't know the answer to this question. This card is so ridiculous. I will say this, while you were alluding to the early days of NXT, what about, who was it that was doing that thing where they were running around the ring and they ate it? Was that Percy, I can't remember who it was. But,
Percy Watson, who's now their announcer.
That's right. Because they were doing the thing where you had to like run around the ring and do like an obstacle course, and he just completely eats it. Like it wipes out.
Titus before there was Titus.
That's right. Yeah, it was the pre-Titus. But no, I would say that there's two matches that clearly, maybe three that clearly are at the top here for me. Obviously, Velveteen and Ethan Carter is going to be great. Adam Cole and Ricochet is going to be fantastic. And then another Gargano Ciampa match. I mean, who doesn't want that? I think the answer to that is nobody, because everybody would love to see these two just go at it again. I mean, the last match was unbelievable. The finish to the last match was really, really well done. And for them to get another crack at it for the belt, it just doesn't get any better than that.
Rich, as we head into NXT TakeOver season, every year at Brooklyn, there's always a big either return or a rival. Is this the year? Is this the match? Is this the weekend where we finally see Matt Riddle in the crowd, not just in the background of someone else's shot, as was his first appearance, but now as a featured player in NXT going forward?
Oh, definitely. I think this is the time. I mean, you had a number of promoters do CZW most infamously, hey, we can't book Matt Riddle for this show like we planned because he's going to WWE, and then that got scrubbed with the quitness.
CZW really does not care about their working relationship with WWE. That's what I keep learning every month. I'm like, oh, they just don't care.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, well, what are you going to do? You're going to make us go to a smaller venue? Not so fast, my friend. It's like we're not trying to book. Yeah, CZW is not trying to book Madison Square Garden. They're booking wherever they need and wherever they legally can assemble, and maybe not so much wherever they could get away from quick. I think Riddle would be a great ad. I think right now, even Triple H mentioned in his press conference, they are at a stage where they're so loaded that whenever they do get raided after SummerSlam, they still have bodies on bodies. I mean, you take a Ricochet and an Adam Cole. Heck, you take all Undisputed Era, Ricochet, and probably everyone but Velveteen, because I think Triple H is going to hold on to Velveteen like that keeper league quarterback that he's hoping that nobody notices.
He's 20.
And they'd still. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, boom.
No, I was just saying he's 23. Like he's like stats. I wouldn't let him wrestle anymore. Honestly, I'd be like, we're gonna put you in cellophane and we're gonna break you when we're ready. We're gonna break you up when we're ready because you're a finished product. We're just letting you sit under the cooling lamp. On the heating lamp and just stay ready. I think you're right. I think that there's so much talent down there. There's been a bit of a logjam and but it's also good because you've had injuries. I know Oni Lorcan got hurt a couple weeks ago, and it's enabled other people to step up. What it's going to be interesting to see is how the incoming talent is presented. I think the weakest part of the NXT universe right now is the tag team division. If you look at like a Heavy Machinery or even what they're doing with TM61, it's fine and it's good, but it doesn't make for someone who I think can threaten the two teams that are going to be featured on Saturday night. Let's get into the card. Let's get into what we think is going to happen. We're going to start at the bottom, and I say the bottom because there's only 5 matches, and there's only one that doesn't have a belt. Velveteen Dream versus Ethan Carter III. EC3 with probably his best promo work since his return this past week on NXT TV. Velveteen Dream has taken a lot of high-profile losses in these takeovers. Sam, we just talked about what a resilient character we think he can be in the future. You think he can stand one more loss to an incoming talent?
Yeah, I think he can. I think you hit the nail on the head there where he's already a finished product, so you know what you're going to get. There isn't necessarily a point to giving him wins, whereas you can use them to vault other people. I'm not saying he's not going to win this match. I just think that that's the justification for if he doesn't win. But at the same time, to counteract that, you do have to get wins at some point, unless they're going to make his gimmick the new Kurt Hawkins and have 200-plus losses in a row. But I don't see that happening. I think, quite frankly, that'd be a waste of the character. So I think we'll see Velveteen Dream probably pick up the win here. Like he's, we're asking the question, can he survive? Yeah, he could survive the loss, But I don't know. Just for some reason, I see him finally, like you mentioned, getting over at one of these big takeover events.
Let's pass the pencil over to Rich. Rich, let's say you're booking this territory. Are you going to have Velveteen Dream take another fall here, or are you going to have him going over in EC3?
I think given the fact that he's kind of been the fall guy for the last couple of feuds, this would be a great time for him to get that win and kind of build some momentum to perhaps an eventual NXT or US title shot, especially if Ricochet wins it.
What's been really interesting to me is watching EC3's kind of development and his return. He's obviously a great hand, obviously great on the mic, great presence, great charisma. He's one of those guys who I feel like never has to really do anything in NXT. He could show up on Raw or SmackDown next week and it would not feel out of place one bit. He's a fully realized character, and I think you're both right. I think that this is the time for Velveteen Dream, young Patrick Clark, to get his first W on a takeover, and I think you're going to have a hell of a match. But I am afraid that this next match is being lost in some of the discussions. I think it's going to be an absolute great one. The Undisputed Era, Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, the champions, are going to be defending the titles against Mustache Mountain, Tyler Bate and Trent Seven, without me going into my personal preference for British Strong Style being Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. These four men have had some hell of a matches over the past year, including but not limited to the UK tournament and NXT TV a few weeks ago. Rich, do you see the Undisputed Era coming out of this match of the titles?
Sorry, for some reason my microphone went crazy.
Good.
I see them coming through after some shenanigans. I think I would love to see British Strong Style represented by in this case Mustache Mountain winning the tag titles. I think they'll have a great match, and perhaps it's more poignant for them to be the standard bearers for the NXT UK Tag Championships whenever those finally debut. But in my perfect world, they would show up on SmackDown and tear it down with the Usos segment 3.
Yeah, man, it's one of those things where I'm of the mind where either team could win here. It depends a lot on what you're going to book going forward, but I would probably keep the title on the Undisputed Era myself, if only because I want Bobby Fish is old, and I'm not entirely sure how back he's going to get. And so I would like to see Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly kind of do their thing for a little bit longer. But you're right. If either team shows up on Tuesday, I'm not complaining one bit. Sam, who do you have going over here?
I ride or die for Mustache Mountain, first of all. Love those guys. That is a great thing to call yourselves, obviously. But I'll say that I think Undisputed Era probably holds on to it, too, just because, like you said, maybe giving them a little bit longer of a time with those straps.
I'll tell you what, though, watching Trent Seven sell that leg on the NXT TV they did when they won the titles back, all four of these guys, I'm just like, they chant all these guys, both these guys, I'm chanting all these guys. It's going to be a great match, and I think that might be the diamond in the rough for this card. The obvious diamond is anytime you let the ace of NXT, he asked for permission. I made sure of that before I started calling him that. He did ask for permission. But Ricochet is taking on Adam Cole for the NXT North American Championship, which has not changed hands since being won by Adam Cole in that ladder match. Sam, are we going with the King or are we going with Adam Cole, baby?
Yeah, I think they want to get a belt on Ricochet. I think he's going to win this match. I think he's going to have a good little run with a belt before, the inevitable call-up for a guy that's just uber talented, can really work a good match with anyone, and has proven to be this high flyer that isn't, going to be subject to a 205 live. This is a high flyer. This is a guy who, like a Jeff Hardy before him, and like some of these other guys, can reach the top of the card and still have that kind of offense. So I'm very much looking forward to when he gets to the main card. But for now, I think you give him a belt and give him a little bit of a run here with it.
Rich, I was able to hear Ricochet on Edge and Christian's Pod of Awesomeness last week, and it was very interesting to say that he only started feeling like he was a good wrestler 2 years ago because he stopped doing just flippy stuff to do it and started focusing on his storytelling, and he emphasized just how important the PC has been for that. Is this the time to put a belt on him?
If he hadn't been injured going into this, and that's why he had a lot of those angles on the tapings, I would have been worried because I think, if I remember correctly, it was during their time in Paris. I think he's healed up. So as long as he's healthy, this is the time to do it. I mean, shoot, make him the number 2 guy in NXT to whomever the champ is and go from there. And at some point, I would argue he's probably going to have a Loki might not. He probably isn't going to win the NXT title proper because it'll get called up well before then.
I agree. It's one of those things that's so funny looking at this match on paper because honestly, neither guy really needs the belt. It's a situation where the guys are making the belt's not making the guy, and whoever walks out with it's going to be, I think, well deserving and carry the brand very well. Kairi Sane is taking on Shayna Baszler, and probably for my money, the match that most benefited from this week's NXT TV. For those of you who didn't see it, Shayna Baszler was on the call for Kairi Sane's match, and she questioned Kairi Sane's killer instinct because, let's be frank, Kairi Sane's a great athlete, but the gimmick feels kind of one note, like the Pirate Princess. But she showed an edge this week with the 3 consecutive elbows, finishing off with the submission hold that she's added. And now I'm chomping at the bit because we know how Shayna works. We've seen her do her stuff on the big stages. Rich, can we put the belt to the Pirate Princess and that elbow that I love watching?
As a meme I saw on Twitter put, instead of Thor being the combination of a pirate and a baby angel, it should be Kairi Sane.
That's perfect.
And I think it should be because she showed on NXT TV this week her mean streak, stopping the pinfall, stopping the submissions, and destroying her opponent, and kind of giving a little nod to Shayna like I'm a different person. I think she'd be a great ad, and I think Shayna would be a great ad to be the real best friend and sidekick to Ronda Rousey as she continues her development on the main roster.
Oh, we're getting horsewomen versus horsewomen eventually. So I think that her moving up will be sooner than later, and the other 2 coming in is probably sooner too. I agree. Franco, what you got here, man?
Well, first and foremost, it's champing at the bit, D-Palm, not chomping. But I will.
Think Tommaso. Think Tommaso.
Thank you. I will throw out the fact. I think honestly, you alluded to it, the horsewomen versus horsewomen thing. I think they do need to get more surrounding Ronda Rousey on the main roster. So I could definitely see Sane winning this match, and then like y'all alluded to, going ahead and starting to plant the seeds for that program that we think will probably happen at WrestleMania.
I'll say this, the writing for Shayna Baszler has been so good that it's almost hard for me to see her working that babyface style with Ronda, but that's one of the beauties of these 2 ladies bring to the table is that you can be a babyface, but Ronda doesn't work babyface. She doesn't sell in the corner. She doesn't take 3 flat backs. No, she's out here. She doesn't feed. No, she out here and wrestles her match. And I think if they make certain tweaks, they can have Shayna be almost the Diesel to Ronda's Shawn Michaels, and I never thought I'd ever say that. Let's go to the main event, what I assume is the main event. Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano. It's the 3rd time they're doing it. Last man standing for the title. This is all occurring because of an injury suffered by Aleister Black, the former champion, at a house show. And it's been turned into an angle. It's a very effective angle. Who done it? And for my money, the loser leaves NXT match is this match. And I'm going to say it before I get to you guys. I think Ciampa wins. I think Gargano goes up. Gargano might capture a mid-card title. And then one day, Ciampa's going to show up again. And that's when this story is really going to take off. But not to say it hasn't already, it's been completely engrossing. I've been enveloped in it. It's probably my favorite WWE story told over the last year because it's the only WWE story told over the last year. Franco, are we going with the Blackheart or are we going with Johnny Wrestling?
This one's tough because I was going to say that Gargano was going to win, but then you just kind of convinced me that maybe he's the one that gets the first call up, and then Ciampa, who plays the bad guy in this feud just so perfectly, comes up and maybe costs him that mid-card title that you alluded to on the main roster. So I think you have swayed me. I think I'm going to follow in your footsteps and say that, yes, this will be a Ciampa win that sets up a great little run here for Gargano on the main card after SummerSlam.
I think part of the reason I'm calling it the way I am is because I think Mandy Rose and Ciampa, I mean, there's a little gimmick infringement there with the new finisher, the Angel's Wings. Rich, do you see the Blackheart winning here?
I think I do, and the big reason for me is Johnny, as they mentioned so eloquently, he is staring into the abyss, and the abyss has really started to stare back into him. And as they showed that whodunit with the injury to Aleister, for me, even though they showed the cast of millions that could have done it, Johnny seemed to be the most logical in my brain, even if they don't play it out, because he hates Ciampa so much. He helped him win a title inadvertently, so we think. And so this match, I think Ciampa's going to win because he's now tapped into that dark side of Gargano, and Gargano isn't the same man for it. On the main roster, God bless him, because I think he could be a healthy version of what they never wanted Daniel Bryan to be, but he kind of forced his way into that role. And if Bryan's leaving in the end of the month, that would be a heck of timing.
Bryan's not leaving. I think it's interesting because if you look at the card, if you step back from the card and look at it, and you're thinking about NXT as a whole, it's a very old school territory, a very heel driven territory. It's very kind of NWA in the 80s because the chase is the story. Whereas WWE has historically been a babyface territory, we always leave them smiling. Your NWAs, your WCWs, your NXTs have become heel driven, and I think that Ciampa vanquishing Gargano is a much more compelling case. And having people having a Ricochet chase a Gargano, or excuse me, chase a Ciampa, because let's be honest about the Undisputed Era, they may act like heels, they cheer like baby faces. Adam Cole, Ciampa is the match I want to see, and I will not be robbed of that. Let's go now to the main card where they've got to follow this one somehow. Every year, every time we do one of these big shows where I'm like, let's have everybody on and we'll talk about blah, 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 all the great things, we end up with this problem because WWE has to follow it. They don't have a choice. They have to follow it. And they're going to try to follow it on Sunday with another SummerSlam, the last one from Brooklyn for a while, it looks like. And let's talk about some things before we get there, because like we've all mentioned in the discussion earlier, Evolution's happening, Mae Young Classic's happening. I know, Rich, on some level you are a little bit critical of how it's been framed, but we cannot deny that, especially in the realm of WWE, these are groundbreaking things that happen.
I'm sorry, you cut out on me, Palm.
Okay, you're fine. I was just saying that while we can't have reasonable kind of criticisms of the way it's being framed, we cannot deny the true historic nature of what's occurring in the WWE right now with the Mae Young Classic 2.0 and the Evolution pay-per-view coming at the end of October.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have this is, despite many complaints in the area of the champions currently on the main roster, the roster itself is comprised between NXT and the main with a bevy of different body types, wrestling styles, and personalities that you wouldn't have seen before. It would usually, who's fighting over the cover of Playboy, who's doing this, who's doing that. You know, you have a Tegan Knox who, it was, as Triple H mentioned in his press conference, it was so quiet in this arena when she got hurt that you could hear her sobbing in the ring. That's not people who saw it as, you know, bread and circuses. Those are people who really appreciated the talent of the women that were in the ring at the time of her injury. So, yeah, you're right. Despite any of the other things going on back there, you can't excuse you can't escape the fact that the historical relevance of this stuff is unparalleled.
It's wild, man. It's to the point where I've actually started pressing some contacts that I have and trying to get tickets to Evolution. It just feels like we're in a moment for the WWE, and for the first time in a long time, I feel really good about kind of the direction this company's headed. Sam, what say you about kind of the big push, if not just in, if not the most earnest thing in the world, but at least for visibility for the women performers?
Well, I'll first talk about the Mae Young Classic. I like a lot of the names they brought in. I like Caitlyn coming back for that. A Casey Catanzaro, a project from American Ninja Warrior. Who
did you see her new springboard like into the ring?
Unbelievable. And that's the thing. Like, this is an extremely talented and extremely athletic individual coming from, one of the most impossible things to do in athletics in the American Ninja Warrior courses. So I'm very much intrigued by her, very much looking forward to that, and very much impressed with WWE for going out, thinking outside of the box, and recruiting those kind of athletes to come in with no real wrestling experience and training them at the Performance Center, names that people know and can follow from outside and be intrigued by them coming in. So you're branching out to a whole different audience there by trying to bring different eyeballs on. So I just give them all the credit in the world for that. And I'm a very big fan of hers, and hopefully she will be a success in the WWE. But then going to the Evolution card, which is going to be incredible, just to see how far all of this has come, especially to have some of the older, women wrestlers, your Mickie Jameses, your Trish Stratuses, and all that, wanting to be involved in this. I just think is really cool to see. And again, with some of the things we've seen in wrestling over the years, this is feels like it's been a long time coming that the women are being taken seriously and being given these chances to shine in these big moments.
It's so wild because I get a lot of people talking to me on Twitter sometimes, and someone mentioned that the Mae Young Classic is just more lip service, and I pointed out, you can say that if you want to. You know what they didn't have two of? Cruiserweight Classics. There was no second Cruiserweight Classic. There wasn't. I mean, it's just the fact that they're going out and, like you said, not just bringing back old talent, but contracting new talent for this. This is creating exposure, it's creating desire, it's creating pressure on the industry, because now for the first time since I have been following wrestling since the beginning of the internet era, someone finally asked the question, wait, why doesn't New Japan have women? And it was wild because it was one of those things that is just kind of an accepted truth. But now that accepted truths are being challenged, now that that's the way we've always done it, isn't a good enough answer, now we're seeing the real seeds of change. Now we're seeing real tides happen. If the GRR could have happened 10 years ago and no one would have mentioned no women on the card. Here, it became not just a point of contention, but a sticking point, not just for fans, but for talent like Corey Graves, who spoke on his social media and got in trouble for it about the fact that they couldn't bring the women into GRR. So I applaud the WWE for shining that spotlight where it needs to be shined. And let's start first with the pre-show for SummerSlam in a mixed tag match, Rusev and Lana versus Cien Almas and Zelina Vega. And that's going to be a lot of fun because Rusev Day and that kind of subplot's been just a lot. It's been very well structured, in my opinion. It's been very organic, in my opinion. And Almas and Vega, they have proven at every turn that not just are they a great act together, they can both get it done between the ropes. Rich, I'll go to you first. Who do you have going over here? And do you think that Aiden English will be a factor?
Well, I think it's going to be Rusev Day because Rusev gave one of the best promos I think he's ever done as a face. And they have more skin in the game with Rusev and Lana the time they have on the roster. I think they could get away with maybe Lana catching Zelina slipping. I don't think it'll be something, or at least to me, I'll defer to you guys if you think so. I think it'll be a situation where it's a Lana win as opposed to a Rusev over Almas, if that makes sense, because that kind of saves more for that down the road.
That's fair. That's very fair. I like that. I like that booking right there. It's very interesting that you pointed out that Rusev is working pure face now, and you're right, because they've done a very good job, and people kind of questioned early, like, what are they doing with Almas? But it seemed like they just wanted to have the plan in place because they've done a great job of establishing him as a good heel act for NXT, for SmackDown. Sam, who do you have going over here? Rusev Day or El Idolo?
This is a tough one. I could see a case for both sides going over. You know, they've pushed Cien Almas pretty hard since being called up to SmackDown, but I think Rusev has a lot of momentum right now, and I don't know if you quell that with a loss here, unless you have Aiden English involved somehow, and then you have some sort of program between Rusev and Aiden English for a little while. But you could probably end up having that anyway. Even though it's not the thing that I'm sure a lot of people are dying to see compared to some of the other things you would like Rusev to be doing. But I'll go ahead and say that Rusev wins this one just again because I don't think you want to quell the momentum that whole thing has right now.
I couldn't agree more. I think Rusev does go over here, and I think I want to talk about the unofficial fourth member of Rusev Day next, as Cedric Alexander will be defending the Cruiserweight title against Drew Gulak. I'll be honest, I am not as up to date on 205 Live, I hope to be by Sunday, that I should be, because I know for a fact that some great wrestling is going on Tuesdays, and I need to pay closer attention. I'm going to vote here for Cedric out of just, I love watching Cedric work. I rewatched the Cruiserweight Classic with a friend who was a lapsed fan recently, and he was just like, this is amazing. But yeah, it's just the Cruiserweight Classic. I explained what it was, but watching that match with Ibushi again, it reminded me of just how electric Cedric is. Sam, Cedric or Drew?
It's funny because Drew Gulak is the most un-205 Live wrestler on 205 Live. Yeah, he is Dean Malenko. He really is this cruiserweight that has no business wrestling, in that style. But he's, I guess, using what he's got, and he's doing a very good job with it. But yeah, I do like that Dean Malenko comparison. I just don't think for him, I don't think you can have that be the champion of your brand, 205 Live, this high-flying brand. For WCW is a little bit different because they just had Cruiserweight Hour at 8. so you could kind of do whatever you wanted with it. But I think with the branding and the way that you've done it, I don't know if you can have a Gulak be the champion. So I love watching Cedric Alexander. I was probably going to pick him anyway, but especially because the opponent is Gulak, who I love. I just don't see him as that face of the brand. You could probably have him for a little while, but not for a super long amount of time.
I hear you. Well, what about you, Rich? Do you think that this is the time to let the no-fly zone really reign its terror over the 205 division?
I think it could be, because I know Cedric's had the belt for a pretty good stretch here, and he's defended against all comers. And the only way I would be cool with a Cedric retention is if we had the not talked about, but it's interesting that Triple H and Cedric have brought him up in the past month, return of Neville.
And that's the thing is I caught that too. I've heard Neville mentioned twice on official WWE communication in the last month, and that's really brought it out of me. It's like, wait a second, is this going to be a Cedric go over and then Neville come in and rip your heart out again like he did? I think it was almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
With his big return. It's going to be very interesting to see how they play that. The last match on the pre-show, the B team, the undefeated B team, mind you, taking on the Revival, Scott Dawson, Dash Wilder. For me, my money, I'm a Revival mark. I make no apologies. If I could see the boys go over, the two Southern boys who are ready to fight, I say, yeah, I would like to see that. Rich, are you here for the Revival, the one-time Raw champs?
I think so. I'm all day, all night. I won't join with the proud Southern people because I'm Northern, and it kind of doesn't end well when that starts getting yelled about a lot. But yeah, I think this is a great time for the B team to see that they were outclassed by a better set of opponents. And this also could lead the way for them taking on as champions a lot more of those mishmash tag teams and showing them what actual tag team cohesion looks like.
I'll say this, Rich. I am taking it back. I'm taking back to other people. It can't just mean what they want it to mean. It means me too, because I am people and I am Southern, my friend. Sam, you got the Revival going over?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think the B team thing has been all right, but it was never anything that was going to be a lasting thing. I don't think. I think it was they struck some temporary gold, and that's great. But I think that they probably will go over. I did like their program with Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy, but yeah, I think I'll go ahead and say that the Revival go ahead, get this win, and like you guys said, maybe show all of these non-real tag teams what it's all about.
Amen to that. Look at us, a bunch of Brainbuster marks over here cheering for Brainbusters 2018. I love it. Let's go now to the main card. And this is what everyone's here for. These are the big matches, and they're so big, it's hard to decide where to start. Match order, I'm not going to try here. I'm just going to list matches as I see them. The Bludgeon Brothers, Harper and Rowan, are taking on the New Day for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. I, for one, have allowed the Bludgeon Brothers gimmick to grow on me. And I also was happily reminded during the match at the bar just how good the New Day is in between the ropes, excuse me. I kind of want the New Day to go over here, if only because I think the Revival will need some legitimate tag teams to work with on Raw. So I want to see New Day go over. I want to see the Bludgeon Brothers and maybe even the Usos take a trip to Raw and strengthen that tag team division. What say you, Sam?
Yeah, I want the New Day to go over here too. I think it's about time you put the straps back on them. And possibly not have it be a super long run, because I think eventually you're going to need to put Big E into some more singles competition, more of a singles push. But for right now, it's still working perfectly. And I'm not saying take him away from like the New Day in a singles push, but maybe restructure how they do things. But for now, I think they probably go over here because, like you said, Bludgeon Brothers moving over to Raw and giving some more competition to the tag team division over there would be solid.
100%. Rich, who do you have going over here? Do you have the Patrons of Pancakes or the Bludgeon Brothers?
I think it's time for the Hammer Time to go into that gentle good night, because
I hate that
as much as I love myself some Luke, I can't. Eric Rowan is just I don't get it. I don't get Eric Rowan.
I love Eric Rowan, man. I love Eric Rowan. They made him wrestle for an entire 3 years in that jumpsuit that gave him the perma wedgie, and he still did it. And that's all it works for me. I'm sorry. Every night, not just on TVs, he's working house shows with the perma wedge. And I'm like, look, man, that's commitment to the task. It's so funny because I don't know if you heard Luke Harper on, again, Edge and Christian's podcast, but he described when they first got together how they didn't like each other. They didn't get along, and they kind of competed because Eric Rowan's a good 3 inches taller than Harper. Harper was listed in his boots as being equitably tall. And so it was kind of that big man heat, and they kind of talked it out, and they figured it out. And when Vince brought them the gimmick with the hammers, he was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But the first night they went out there, it's something to be said about just being different. Going back to Glow, we talked about earlier, Sheila caught on and got a following because she was different. And that's why I support the Bludgeon Brothers. That's why I support this ridiculous, stupid gimmick. The only worry I have about them going to Raw is that with Matt Hardy apparently on the way out, I do not want to see Wyatt's 3.0. It's over. If you're going to go Wyatt's, go Bo and Curtis.
Axel.
Yeah, go Bo and Axel, man. Give me some new Wyatts. Let's do the Bo and Bray thing finally. Let's finally pull that trigger. I'm just bitching now. Sorry. Let's move on. All right. So next up on the card, but in my mind, Finn Balor, Baron Corbin singles match. They've done a lot here with Corbin, not so much with Finn. I think I've really enjoyed the Constable Corbin thing. I think it's very funny that he comes to that he does his job in a vest. And to wrestle, he just takes off the vest but leaves the dress shirt on. I think it's hilarious. I think the best decision that WWE has made in 2018 was making Baron Corbin shave his head. It was very distracting. Come on home, Baron. You look much better this way. Rich, is this the time where Finn Balor catapults himself back into the main event picture by picking up this big win over what's been described as the fist of the authority?
I would think so, but I'm also a negative Nancy when it comes to the treatment of Finn Balor, at least on Raw. I think, especially when we talk about what might happen in the main event, I feel like the last year and a half could have just been infinity time stoned, and we just never experienced it, including the fact that despite Finn has been awesome in terms of representation and going out there for the LGBTQIA community, he's also been treated as a human lawn dart by all the big dudes in the company.
Well, I think that's actually pretty good for me. I'm enjoying people. I know people are down on how they treated him, quote unquote. I'm like, look, guys. First of all, he's on TV every week, which is what you want to be as a wrestler. We can argue about storylines that we want, but what's really interesting for me is that a year ago, you look at he's doing a program with Finn Balor, or with Bray Wyatt on this very same card, picking up the win, and it didn't really lead anywhere because of the injury to Bray, and you had to kind of compensate with that AJ and Finn match, which was delightful. What I think they've done here is that when we talk about the end of this card, I think something big's going to happen where that's going to need babyfaces to chase. And with Rollins and Ambrose and Bourne in their story, I think your lead babyface on Raw is going to end up being Finn Balor, and none of us are going to see it coming.
I'm going to be honest here with this whole program and these two guys in particular, and this might be the thing I pick up the most heat for saying on this entire podcast, but neither one of these guys does anything for me. I don't know what it is. Finn Balor at times I can see the appeal. I can see what people like about him. Maybe it's the finisher that I just personally find weak. I don't know, but neither one of these guys really does anything for me. I would agree with you saying the D-Palm that Finn Balor probably goes over here and gets thrust back into the main event picture. But the whole Baron Corbin Constable thing, fighting in a button-down shirt and slacks, it's like I just don't get it.
As a fan of Corporate Kane, I rebuke your assertion that he should not be wrestling in slacks. How dare you, sir?
Hey, that's the mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee, okay?
And the mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, you're correct. But also, I would say to you, Diamond Dallas Page had his ribs taped for at least 4 years in WCW, and I didn't ask any questions. I'm not going to ask questions about the Joe shirt. Next up on the card.
Rib tape.
Next tape on the card, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Jeff Hardy for the U.S. title with, I think we can all assume, and maybe not, an interjection by a certain Viper. Now, Sam, it's been picked up recently by many mainstream media outlets about some of Randy Orton's past proclivities. And they still had him on SmackDown like lurking like a creep, which I thought was a really weird directorial decision. Do you think that they could do this on their big stage their last night in Barclays for a while?
Yeah, I don't know about this one. This is certainly interesting. Like you said, the interesting things that Randy Orton has been said to have done.
Allegedly.
Well, yeah, exactly. Said to have done. But yeah, I don't know. That one is weird. I really do like heel Shinsuke Nakamura. Everything they've done with him has been really good. I'm not really here for the fake Sting Jeff Hardy thing. I mean, it's all right, I guess. But I think Shinsuke wins here. I think the Hardy Boys in general. You look at Matt Hardy. Kind of picking up some injuries, looking a little slow. You look at Jeff Hardy doing the same thing. It's like, I love that they came back, but I mean, how much more do these guys have? I mean, they've just been destroying their bodies for so long.
I think we're at the end of the Matt Hardy thing. Some of the tweets have been kind of foreboding as of late, and I think it's going to end sooner than later with him. That's probably why he and Bray are on the card. Rich, Randy, for me, the only question here is how involved Randy Orton. I think Shinsuke goes over and keeps the title. I think it's important to keep the title on him right now. Do you think they can have a Randy Orton moment here? Like, I think they should probably just back off of that. Let him have a match.
Yeah, I mean, they turned him into John Lovitz in The Wedding Singer at the end of SmackDown this week, hiding behind the curtain and just kind of menacingly staring off into the distance. I think if they do anything, they'll become the Smash Brothers and team up to eradicate poor Jeff Hardy's testicles, and then Shinsuke retains his title. But I do think, knee to face, elbow, wrist, and Randy Orton's knee to Mr. Hardy's groin, and a 1-2-3 for the best representative of America we got going today.
I'll tell you what, the only thing I don't want to see is if they make Jeff shake Randy's hand. Okay, let's move on now. Next match on the card, SmackDown Women's Championship, Carmella, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte Flair. A great wrinkle here with the story, with the kind of will they, won't they of Charlotte and Becky. I think it's been very interesting because in the past, Charlotte's always called Becky her Sting to her Ric Flair. And I think we can all agree Charlotte works best as a heel. I think we could really see the heel turn come here. I think that Carmella could win by crook, but if we're going off of where I think the story should go, Becky in the chase. Give the belt to Charlotte, let Becky chase her. What say you, Rich?
I would love Becky to be champion, Becky Balboa, all day, every day, but I think Carmella's going to win through chicanery, so that way she can brag the next night she beat both of them at the same time.
I wasn't here for the Carmella as a champ character, but what she's done, like the Amella is money stuff, she's really kind of owned it. She's really kind of, her character has stepped up to the plate, and I applaud her for it. And her ring work is not nearly as bad as people want to try to bang on her for. Sam, who do you have coming out of the triple threat?
Oh, I am absolutely in love with everything about Carmella. I think she's a perfect heel women's wrestler in today's day and age. I think that she has taken to the role of being that heel incredibly well, and they've sort of dwindled down the Princess of Staten Island stuff and made it more about kind of the individual character as opposed to any sort of association that she had with Enzo and Cass from back in the day. But I think that, like you guys alluded to, she's going to hold on to the title here, through some sort of shady dealings. And again, I just think that she's done a fantastic job in this role that was kind of thrust upon her. And I think Triple H and company giving the trust that they have in a girl that was relatively unproven and putting her in this kind of a main event match with two of the four horsewomen just speaks a lot to the work that Carmella's done.
Couldn't agree more. Next on the card, Braun Strowman, the man amongst men, the monster amongst men, excuse me. I hate to get in trouble with that large human being. Taking on Kevin Owens with the Money in the Bank on the line. One of my issues here, I guess, kind of historically in WWE, is that while it's been a big man territory, they don't always book their big man the best. I think they've done a very good job paying attention to the close details with Braun Strowman. But what they've shown in the past is such an adherence to picking up a win that he's broken rules. And if you break a rule here, they will take the title. They'll take the briefcase from you. I think that's how Kevin Owens goes over. Sam, what do you think here? What do you think? And we'll talk about the end of the card at the very end. But let's just say, who do you think goes over and walks out of this match with the briefcase?
I think Kevin Owens does. I don't think Braun Strowman needs it. Again, this is something that I just don't think that unless you have a scenario where Brock's going to beat Roman and then Braun comes down and wins it, or even if Roman wins and Braun comes down and wins it. But I don't know. Something just tells me, I don't know why I think this, because it's not conventional wisdom, but I just think Kevin Owens, it's better for him to have the briefcase than Braun Strowman. So I guess that's why I'm calling for that. Again, not the smartest pick I don't think I've ever made, but just some gut feeling tells me he's going to get the briefcase.
Well, a heel's always better with the briefcase. It always feels weird when a baby has it because it's like, oh, you're going to underhandedly steal a belt as a babyface. Rich, we got 2 votes for Kevin Owens here walking out as the Money in the Bank champion coming out of this match. What do you have?
I'm definitely going to be number 3 because I think the same thing.
Look at us plugging the same territory. I love it.
And that goes to my time stone thing because I think he's going to win and cash in at the end of the night. So basically,
at the end of the card, what are you doing?
Listen, I'm just looking at, I love the Goldberg stuff, but we really could have avoided all of the last year and a half if he just had Kevin Owens give the belt to someone.
You couldn't be more right, my friend. I couldn't agree more. Let's go now to, for my money, the second best story of the weekend behind Gargano Ciampa, Daniel Bryan, Mike the Mizanian, going head-to-head at SummerSlam. It feels like a belt should be on the line. It feels like next time they do this, a belt will be on the line at WrestleMania. But I digress. We've seen these two go at each other both in the ring in the past. We've seen them go verbally at talking smack, and now we're getting them back in the ring again. Rich, you've got the pin. Who are you putting over here?
I put the Miz over. He's got Miz and Mrs. He's got basically while Daniel has the wrestling acumen, the Miz is proven short of John Cena. He is the Iron Man in terms of representing the company in a positive light anywhere in the world, anywhere they send him. So him stepping up his promo game, his wrestling game, and going up against a guy who's been instrumental in his career, I would give the win to Miz.
I couldn't agree more. I think the Miz picks it up here. It's a great red herring after the week of the reveal of the Daniel Bryan showcase in WWE 2K19. Make sure you get your copy. I believe it's October 7th. They don't give me money. I just wish they would. Sam, who do you have going over here?
Yeah, I think the Miz is going to win this. Super dirty. I don't know exactly how it's going to be. The Miz always does seem to win these matches and just, from a purely mark standpoint, the most infuriating ways possible. I feel like eventually, the payoff at WrestleMania when Daniel Bryan beats him for, like you said, some sort of belt is going to be phenomenal. But, yeah, I think the Miz goes over here, and we're going to see somewhat of a similar run to where we saw Daniel Bryan when he ultimately won the belt at the New Orleans WrestleMania. Yeah, I feel like eventually this is going to roll like that, but it's not going to be so much Daniel Bryan being held down by the man as it's going to be the Miz constantly doing underhanded things to keep Daniel Bryan down.
Couldn't agree more. Let's go to the title matches to wrap up this card. Dolph Ziggler, easy for me to say, with Drew McIntyre in his corner, is taking on Seth Rollins with Swole Ambrose for the Intercontinental title. I've got Rollins going over. He's Mr. SummerSlam. What say you, Sam?
Yeah, Dean Ambrose coming back the other night. I was like, damn, dude. He came back looking real stout.
And only lifting weights.
I know. It's just incredible. And they brought him back into this fold. I thought that was a good thing. Obviously, not ready to fully come back and be in the ring yet, it doesn't seem like. But to have him here, have him involved, yeah, I think Seth Rollins gets the win here. And I think eventually, we saw this with Drew McIntyre being in that number one contender match. I guess that Roman Reigns eventually won. And I love Dolph Ziggler in this role, and maybe Dolph and Seth continue to feud for a little while. But I think Drew McIntyre is not going to be long for being Dolph Ziggler's henchman, even though they're trying to kind of, frame it in the storyline like that's not the case.
Oh, they're doing Shawn Diesel. Like eventually Drew's going to get the big belt, and then we're going to have to see that friction. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. Rich, who do you have here, man?
I think Swole and his CrossFit buddy.
Dean's lost his first name. He just swole Ambrose. Sorry, guys.
It's it. It's like Stevel. You just dumb things just happen. They happen. You can't change. You don't get your nickname. Your nickname's given to you. And I mean, shoot, when he showed up and looked like he spent most of his time in the day room and the rest of his time in the day room. First off, kudos to Samoa Joe being smart enough to be on SmackDown, because those jokes about putting Renee Young's husband out of work and making her work for two, he might have caught a ladder or a bicep to the throat at some point. But I think he's going to get the Intercontinental title, and I also think we're looking at the ticking time bomb of when Dean finally just snaps, because he looks like a sociopath, and sociopaths usually aren't friendly people.
I don't ask for much, WB. I'm very much like I'm here for the ride kind of guy. I need heel Ambrose. I need psycho John Moxley. I need heels crazy ass John Moxley. Give it to me one good time. Give me 6 months. Give me Seth and Dean at Mania over this title. Let Seth win this belt, and then let Dean him the double dirty deeds. And let's build that story. That's what I want to see. Because I'll tell you what, that summer where Dean and Seth wrestled basically the main event every month, that was a great summer.
Yeah. See, Palm, I'm greedy. I want Dean as a heel with Tommaso Ciampa.
Oh, the most evil faction of all time. I'm absolutely here for it. Let's go finish up this card here. Alexa Bliss, Ronda Rousey. I think we can talk about like what's going to happen in the match if we want to. The question now is really, does WWE pull the trigger on Ronda on Sunday? That's the real question. Sam, what do you think?
I think not. I think we're going to have Natty turn on Ronda, give her a little bit of a feud. I just don't think it's time to do it yet. I mean, I could see them wanting to because of the video game, because Ronda's a big part of it, because of Ronda having the movie out now. This one is tough to call, but it just doesn't feel like the strap is a necessary part of her development or her push yet to me.
I agree with you on that end. I'm one of those people who thinks that while I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Ronda gets this belt at Evolution because it'll be right in line with the release of the video game. And that's just how my brain works as far as the marketing. I think that you're right. The presentation of Ronda Rousey right now does not require a belt, where Alexa Bliss kind of might. What about you, Rich?
I think Ronda going in would be a nice story to Evolution as champ, but I think, like you said, at that moment, getting the crowning achievement, that's awesome. I think for this, we haven't heard much about Nia Jax, and this would be a good time for Nia to come back to inadvertently cost Ronda the title.
So Nia's been injured. She's dealing with an injury. I know she's down in Birmingham, I think a week and a half ago. And so I think that storyline-wise, I think you're 1,000% right. I think that'd be a good pivot for this and give us another surprisingly good Nia Ronda match. I think that we're going to have – I think that revolving cast of Bliss like sidekicks is going to come into play. And I think it's time for Ronda to take that first loss, because otherwise you're dealing with an Asuka situation where it's like, how do we ever beat her? And now Asuka's kind of floating because now that she's been beaten, you haven't done a good job of building the character around beyond that. I know this match will not be second to last that I'm about to mention. However, if I've got the pin, and guess what? My show, my mic, my pin. The next match in the card will be Brock Lesnar defending the Universal title against Roman Reigns. Let them boo. Let them boo. Let them boo. They're going to boo. Let them boo. But you know why they're going to stop booing? Because one of two things is going to happen. Either before the match starts, Braun Strowman will demand a triple threat and come in and win the title, or Roman wins the title, has Braun come out and turns heel. That's another way to get the boos. Or Roman wins the title and Kevin Owens comes out and takes it right back, and they will cheer Kevin Owens in Brooklyn. Those are my three options. What say you, Rich? The pin is yours temporarily. I'll let you borrow it. But what do you have happening here?
I think Roman gets his hand raised, and then shortly thereafter, Brock has a temper tantrum and F5s him into oblivion, and Kevin comes up and cleans up the scraps.
See, I like that, but the only thing for me is that if that's what we're going to go with, why are we letting Brock leave so strong? You know what I'm saying? Like, if the big issue is if the meta story that they're telling is we want a full-timer, we want someone here all the time, it feels weird to on the way out. And maybe I'm speaking like traditional old school wrestling, and that's probably part of my problem. The world has changed, wrestling has changed. But it makes me ask, wait, because we know Brock's going to camp after this. He's going to train for his UFC fight probably in January or February. What now? Like, what if let's say he does do that, then the shadow is going to continue to be, well, no one beat Brock like he beat Brock, but look what happened afterwards. Sam, how would you book this?
I know the one thing that isn't going to happen. Of the four parties involved here, Brock, Roman, Braun, and Kevin Owens, Brock Lesnar will not be the champion. That's the only thing that I know. They could go a couple of different ways, like we talked about there with the cash-ins. Maybe Roman Reigns actually gets the title. Who knows? But I do know that Brock won't have it, and thank God, because, look, the belt needs to be in the company. I get the Brock Lesnar thing, but he's a guy who, quite frankly, doesn't need the belt, and they've had it on him for way too long, and it just doesn't – it's not a good look. So getting the belt back in the company is one thing that I think definitely needs to happen. But I think that with this one, it could go any of those three ways. I'm so tired of Brock and Roman Reigns. I like Brock Lesnar as a kind of side piece attraction, so to speak, but not as the main thing. So I think getting him back to kind of wrestling every once in a while, if he is indeed going to do both UFC and WWE. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but I will say that I'm just tired of Brock versus Roman. So thank God this is going to be over. And any one of the three, Roman, Braun, or Kevin, I'm fine with them as champion. It doesn't matter.
I couldn't agree more. Let's just move forward. Let's move to the end of the card. What I would close the card with, a TNA Spectacular. AJ Styles, Samoa Joe for the highest title in the land. I love your fruit roll-up belt. That's adorable, Brock. The WWE Championship is on the line between two TNA originals. My God, who thought we'd ever see this in Barclays at a major WWE show? This isn't a Raw, this isn't a SmackDown, this is SummerSlam. This is one of the big four. Sam, we got AJ Styles, we got Samoa Joe. We have a kind of uneven build because Joe's promo on Tuesday wasn't great. But who do you see leaving with the title?
Yeah, I don't like how they've really done this program at all.
I liked his first speech about the family. Going back to that felt a little weird for me.
Yeah, just the whole way that they evoked family. I don't really ever honestly like it when they do that. Whether it's, Rey Mysterio / Eddie Guerrero's kid or whatever that whole thing was, or, any of this stuff. It's just weird. So I would like to keep that out, but they did it here. It didn't really hit. Look, this is AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. It's going to be a great wrestling match, but just in terms of the program surrounding it, I'm not super fired up for this one. But, I think it's probably about time you give Joe a belt. So I'll say he goes over.
Rich, make it 2.
I think it's time for AJ Styles to go home and be a family man.
Oh, I love it. Because I've been hovering, and I'm here myself. Joe is gonna kill you. I am here for the reign of terror that is Joe with the main roster belt. You thought he was scary in NXT when he had that belt? No, sir. You've seen nothing yet. Let Joe be Joe. I feel like this is the West Wing. Let Bartlett be Bartlett. Let Joe be Joe. Give that man a belt. Give him a spotlight. Give him a microphone and get the hell out of his way. That is the entire SummerSlam weekend. I couldn't be more excited for it. Rich, tell all our listeners where they can find you, please.
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Rich_fan, F-A-N-N. And you can always find me, if you're listening to the fine world of the PW Torch, on the Deep Dive on Saturdays at 6 p.m. or the East Coast Cast on Wednesdays on VIP.
Hey, since Cam didn't show up, I'm going to need you to haul him about give me one of those East Coast Cast foundation shirts. I need the rich one. I need the fan.
He's going to have to give you the offer code. He's going to have to get you one of them offer codes to get that comp because, he did big time us.
He did for real big time us, and I'm going to need some compensation for my pain and suffering. Sam, will you tell everyone where they can find all your insights, not just in Georgia football, but the Atlanta world of soccer?
That's right. First at Sam J. Franco on Twitter. Also at 960 The Ref. The morning show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m. You can stream 960theref.com. Also, Mouths of the South podcast, Dirty South Soccer, at MOTS Podcast, at Dirty South Sock, that's SOC, and as Palm alluded to there, Wednesdays from 7 to 8 p.m. on 106.3 FM, 12:30 a.m. Atlanta Sports X. It is the Mouths of the South radio show where we talk all things Atlanta United. Yes, it is a soccer-specific radio show airing weekly on terrestrial Atlanta radio. This is not a drill. This is actually happening. So we're very proud of it. So, yeah, those are all the different ways you can holler at your boy.
What a time to be alive. I am D. Paul, and I've been joined by the greatest trios team of all time. We'll come for your belt. The six-man tag does not matter. We are coming for the straps. I do want to say this. Make sure you check out the show notes for our sign-up for NFL pick-in this year. I won it last year. I'd rather not win it this year, but I will if you make me. Come try to beat me. Earn some bragging rights and maybe a few prizes along the way. Also, a very special announcement regarding our Fantasy Football League on Monday's show. And I couldn't be more thankful to everyone who came through, everyone who gave us a second of their day to be part of it through Podcast Week. This is my favorite week of the year. It's also my most exhausting week of the year. So I'm going to go edit the show and then take a nap, and you guys are going to enjoy every bit of WWE programming coming at your way this weekend and going forward. That was your show. This is your outro. See you guys on Monday.